It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. Today, we welcome one of the greats of the gridiron. After a stellar college career at Clemson, where he was a consensus All-American, he was a second-round draft choice of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 1992 NFL Draft. From there, he went on to play 11 years in the NFL, including 9 seasons with the Steelers and 1 each for the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles. A 2-time Pro Bowl and All-Pro selection, he was named to the NFL 1990s All-Decades team.
Kelly from the 34 on first down. Kelly going deep over the middle, and it is picked off by Levon Kirkland. A tremendous interception for a linebacker intended for Lonnie Johnson.
Willie Mays would have been proud of that catch. Talk about over the shoulder.
3rd down and 6. And late as well as Kirkland makes the interception at the 26-yard line.
His second of the night.
And
number
3rd
4
of the season.
And Levon Kirkland joins this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN right now with your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. We bring you the biggest guests, great analysis, and the hottest sports stories in the nation's capital and beyond. And we bring it to you live. Welcome to this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to another live stream edition of Listen In with KNN, presented by Fox Sports Radio, 1340 AM and 96.9 FM. I'm, of course, your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. Thanks so much, as always, for joining and supporting the show. We're going to talk the latest and greatest. I have a very special guest. We're going to talk football. Of course, fingers crossed we get football. We're seeing all these COVID-19 cases, but, of course, we only want to continue if it can be safe. So I had to bring in the big guns. I had to bring in somebody who knows the game very, very well at the highest level. He's been at the highest level in college and professional football and is truly doing some amazing things. So we're going to learn from him. We're going to have some fun as always, and it's going to be a very great show. And if I can also give a plug, as you guys know, I've also joined the Washington football team. So also dropping later today, I'll have a brand new show, The Life Dropping, with Fred Smoot, who of course is another former football player that we know very well in this area. So lots of great football talk going on. I'm bringing you guys the latest and greatest. All right, so without further ado, let me welcome on our special guest to the show. He is none other than Levon Kirkland, aka the monster in the middle. He is a Clemson great, a former Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker, and now he's going to join me live because I'm going to take up all of his good time so we can talk and share football stories. Levon, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Kelsey. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
My greatest pleasure. Now, Levon, there's a lot going on before we even get into you. We're seeing all these COVID cases happening with football, right?
Yeah,
what are your thoughts? Do you think we're going to see a season pause, or do you think we're going to see a season finish? Like, what's been going through your mind as you see this news?
Well, I'm sure the NFL don't want to really postpone any more games, and I'm sure they want to carry out the season. But as it's going now, especially when you're talking about the Tennessee Titans, you know, it's a possibility that the season may be short, if anything. I think they will continue with the playoffs, but maybe the season won't go more than 12 games this year because, yeah, this COVID is going around, and it's really, as a team, it's hard to really kind of, you can do everything you possibly do, but it doesn't really prevent it. So it'll be interesting to see what the NFL do going forward.
Yeah, it's just a crazy situation. Again, the Titan situation, I think, just took all of us by a loophole. Just when we thought things were going well, then we see all these reports coming out of Tennessee.
Yeah. I think it's concerning because, unlike basketball or hockey, you can't really house everybody in the same arena. And I think that with this and just being out there, man, it's catching up to a lot of teams, especially teams who are not really following the protocol. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, we are going to be following that closely. And just curious, do you still talk to any current NFL players? And if so, I'm just curious if you've offered them any advice as they try to just matriculate through this COVID-19 pandemic, Levon, that's unlike anything that any of us have ever seen.
Right. Honestly, I really don't. It's kind of hard when you're a 20-year-old millionaire to take advice from a guy who's been gone for a long time. So, I only will talk to guys that would talk to me. So I try to stay back. I really try to work with more younger players because, they're more able to my wisdom. So for right now, there's not really a lot of players that I do talk to, and I'm sure they want to keep it that way.
Look, they should learn. Look, you're one of the greats. And I think if you could talk to the 20-year-old million-something heirs out there, what advice would you give them, though, Levon? This is a crazy time period, right, for anyone, especially with the professional ranks.
You would just tell guys to make good choices. And I know that's tough because, the game is such a physical, mental, emotional game. It takes everything out of you. And a lot of times you just want to unwind. You want to have your freedom, but this is just different times. And you really have to be careful about your health and people's health. And you have to put that in mind. So most athletes, we're kind of selfish in nature because of what the sport and what it takes. So you have to be kind of into yourself a little bit. And that's, a lot of people don't really understand that. So, at this point in time, you have to be careful. You just have to make good choices and do everything that you're supposed to do. Wear your mask, make sure you wash your hands, things of that nature to be safe. And I know a lot of times, as grimy as we are as athletes, it's a little tough to do that. So that's the only advice I can possibly give.
And it's good advice. And it's okay to be about yourself, especially during a time period like this, right? We want you safe. Like you said, just make the right choices. People want to see you all. People want to see you all on the game field. But of course, we only want that if it's going to be safe and secure. So I appreciate you touching on that. And you talked about you talked to younger kids. You might as well get into that. After retiring from football, I know it's been a tremendous part of your life to talk to students and football players, right, in high school and collegiate ranks. So talk about how that process has been and why it's so special for you to kind of reach back, each one teach one in the community.
When I was growing up, there were not a lot of mentors that did what there were not a lot of mentors that you really knew that played collegiate football or played in the NFL. I'm from a small town, Lamar, South Carolina. I had great parents and a great support system, but I didn't have that athlete who'd been there and done that. So as I went through my college career, it was more of a survival for me. Nobody really, you wasn't really quite ready for that. And, it was always kind of scratching and clawing the whole time. And then you go to the NFL, and there was really not a lot of programs to really help you out. The NFLPA tried to do things, but, now you're a grown man and you're expected to be a grown man, and you haven't really learned a whole lot. And even in college as an athlete, they shelter you a little bit. So how most students really get to grow up and they get to be critical thinkers, you as an athlete, a lot of times you don't get that. Everything is really taken care for you. And I have to even tell one story when I was going through trying to be in the NFL and going through the combines. And I remember the first time I had to take a flight and it wasn't with the team. I honestly didn't really know how to do that. how to approach the ticket desk. I had my ticket, and I just had to look at other people. Good thing I'm a quick study. I found out how to do it, and I thought that was a shame. I'm like, I've flown all this time, but I never knew how to really do it. So all through my career, I was always thinking about athletes, and I've always been kind of a big brother to a lot of people, even though I'm the youngest brother. It's kind of funny, but I'm the baby of the family, but people always kind of look at me as more of a leader. So I just always wanted to do something that I can give knowledge and experience and encourage and really be there for the athletes. So, it took me a little while before I found the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame. And what we do is we educate, empower, and encourage. And it's for us in our organization, it's more that football is making a difference through football. And I really think that, especially in South Carolina, the issue we have is that we're 43rd as far as college and career readiness. And nobody wants to be 43rd. I mean, do you want to be 43rd? No. I never want to be ranked 43rd. Right. So we feel that we have a program, and we've done the research, and we've analyzed the issues, and we're trying to get out there and speak to people through my podcast, The Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland, and talk to athletes who've done it before, and they can give leadership tips. Talk to coaches that are affiliated with the state of South Carolina, and let them give us their feedback, that we give them a chance to tell their stories. And hopefully we see people, we'll get our audience to buy into it and to understand that we're committed to this movement. And so that's kind of how I fell into it. I always wanted to give back in that way. And I guess sometimes when you want it, your frequency and your energy kind of pulls you toward it. So that's why I'm here today. And today I'm wearing, if you can't probably see it, it's a shirt that says encourage. And I got some other shirts that says educate and empower. So I try to bring that message everywhere I go. So that's me. Yeah.
Educate, empower, and encourage. I mean, I think those are things that we can all live by. And as you talk about South Carolina and being from Lamar, right, being from a smaller town, what has it meant to you, Levon, to accomplish all that you've accomplished, even off the football field? Like, what does that mean for you, for your hometown, and what you hope to represent to the youngest in your hometown?
Well, my father was a big influence in my life. My mom was too. And, they came up and they were sharecroppers. And I just remember my father, after I went through Clemson, after I actually finished in the NFL, I remember me and him talking, and he told me that he never thought a son of his would go to Clemson University. And I'm like, wow, why you say that?
Yeah.
And he said, well, son, in our day, we couldn't walk through the front door. We couldn't walk through the front door. And this, a year from, in October of last year, they gave me the honor of being in the Ring of Honor, where they put your name on a stadium. Yeah. And I thought about my parents. I thought about my wife that's deceased and my brother. And, my father giving me everything that he had, my mother doing the same. I thought that, I need to give this back in some kind of way. And, I've been doing football camps where I actually physically go out there and show guys technique. But, I always feel like your gifts are more than about yourself. Your gifts are about giving to other people. That's our gifts, our passion, our knowledge. It's about really giving it back. It's not about keeping it and to yourself. It's about giving it back. So I just felt that that's my duty in life, to give that back. And, I was that kid too. I was a student athlete, trying to do it by myself. And I just know we all need support. And so I feel like our organization will be that support for our little land here in South Carolina, our little pond. So that's what we're trying to do. Yes.
That is so awesome. And giving back is just so important and so vital. And the fact that you're able to actually show those kids technique at football camp, and Levon, you still have that big size, they're learning from again.
Yeah, they have to Google me though. They have to search for me because they're like, you play linebacker? And I'm like, oh yeah, play a little linebacker and a little something, yeah, and then their dad can tell them, usually it's their dad that can say, hey, this guy was a player, man. You better bow down and pay homage to Levon Kirkland. But no, I love teaching. I love coaching. I always do. And it may not be on the NFL level or even college or high school, but in some way I'm going to coach. And I really feel like this is the opportunity for me to do that. And like I said, it's about the young people. The young people are going to lead us. So I feel that we need to give to those folks and help them along the way. I don't want you to go through what I did. I mean, I had to kind of learn on my own, and that's kind of how it was back then. But, I think now most athletes understand what it feels like to give back and how important it is.
Yeah, and so many great things. And I want to go back to the coaching part because that's a big topic, of course, in football. And you touch on so many things that are so personal. And for you to share, the story of your parents and sharecropping, and me to be the granddaughter of sharecroppers,
right.
It's huge to the current climate of the current climate of the country that we're in now. And I say that to say, student athletes now are going through a time period probably unlike any other, right? Especially with social media being able to spread messages. We know how this summer has really transformed, or really the spring, with the killing of George Floyd. And of course, we've seen the aftermath of that. And now we're kind of seeing athletes, as I say, find their purpose and use their platform to promote that purpose, Levon. So I'm just curious, what lessons have you been sharing with athletes, college athletes, young athletes, as they try to find their voice and get into this activism realm, but then also play sports when you have so many naysayers saying, stick to sports. That's all we want you for. Like, what has the message been like for you?
I'm really proud of the support that the athletes and the different colleges and the pro athletes have been given, because I understand that people may want to say, just shut up and play sports, and what does sports have to do with being political? But I think fans tend to forget that these are human beings, and they feel, they even though they're put on a pedestal, they still have family, friends that are in those situations, and you feel for them. And most times athletes, they carry their families, especially if they make it to the professional leagues or whatever. They get a heavy burden put on them automatically. So they have a platform, and they understand, especially nowadays, just like you said with social media, that platform can be used for good. Right. That stage can be used to make people aware of what's going on. It's been done throughout the ages, especially for Black Americans. Right. That because a lot of times in sports, and be quite frank with you, people accept you more. I remember being in college, and one of the students asked me, a Black young lady asked me, did I feel racism on Clemson campus? And being totally aware, I was like, yeah, there's racism here. Right. But I don't feel it as much as you do. Right. It's the truth. Because the athlete, right? Like people cater. You're an athlete, and they look at, and sometimes people look at you a little differently. Right. Than just being a human being that cares, a human being that's connected to others. So they tend to think that you're superhuman. Right. And that you don't belong in a certain race category. That you're their hero. And it's funny, I address people and I say, it's funny how you don't care about their feelings and their truths and them being authentic, but every chance you get, you're trying to take a selfie. You're trying to get an autograph, or you stick your baby in their arms to take a picture. Right. But you don't care about their causes. Yeah. I think that's just kind of funny. and a lot of people are just not that open-minded and aware that they're doing that. They want the entertainment aspect of it, but they don't understand that the entertainers are human beings and they have feelings and they have causes. And so it's great for them to give back. And, normally what I would tell a guy if he asked me that question is that you have a brand.
Right.
And you are in control of your brand.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you want to put across a message that really favors your brand.
Right.
Because honestly, we didn't get that lesson when we came up. We just kind of followed a leader. We just did. I mean, a football player is almost like a soldier in a lot of ways. We follow orders. We follow who's our leader. And we don't do a lot of critical thinking. I think now the wonderful thing about the athletes now, they're critical thinkers. And they understand the machine and how the machine works. And when they have an opportunity to work that brand, they do a really good job of doing that, and I think it's wonderful to see. And that's basically what I would tell a guy, just, make sure that you maximize on your brand, that the network that you're getting right now, you're not going to get that probably for the most part. You're not going to get that kind of networking. Take advantage of those relationships.
Yeah, and that's powerful advice that I really hope they listen to. And again, the power of technology now, it can't be remiss how quickly you can send a message to so many and how many are following you. And I think your comment, at Clemson University is so interesting. It's something I think that we all see, right? Like I went to University of Maryland for undergrad. Our athletes might not be on the same level, but they're idolized at the University of Maryland. And it's just different, right? I won't say all the good things, but they got some free perks and stuff. Even going to the world and things like that. It's just different
because we're a big commodity. I mean, we are. I mean, at Clemson University, the Clemson football team, I would dare say, is probably the biggest industry that town has. It takes care of everybody. And I think that the people at Clemson, they understand that. From the president, the board of trustees, they understand that football is their biggest moneymaker.
Right.
And so they're going to take care of the product.
Yeah.
They are. And I really think that Dabo Swinney is probably one of the top CEOs, and I think he kind of treats it as a CEO. He's a little bit more than a head coach. He's a coach at heart, but he's also a very clever CEO. And they do a great job of maximizing the product.
Right.
And a lot of times back in the day, I think as players, you didn't see yourself as that. You didn't see it clearly, because we didn't have the information like it is now. Now information flows so easily, and we're more global than we've ever been. We can reach out and touch people that we never had. I mean, seriously, if it wasn't for social media, Kelsey, me and you would not be having this conversation.
Right.
You can touch out to people that you've never known in your life. And also you can get in touch with people that you've had in the past that in normal circumstances, you would never talk to again. So it's a wonderful thing in a lot of ways, but it leaves you vulnerable. It leaves you open. And so, like I said, I think as somebody giving advice, I would just say, take care of your brand.
Take care of your brand. And let's talk about brand. And since you touched on Dabo, the great guy that he is, we've seen a lot of college coaches have to also go through this time period that we're in. And of course, speak on the Black Lives Matter movement. Dabo's and there's others. I'm just curious your thoughts as a former player, especially at a top football school. You think they've handled it right? Because I think a lot of them have gotten flack, for quite frankly, maybe not fully understanding the cause or what their athletes are trying to push their coaches towards, especially since we see so many, quite frankly, Black players playing in the collegiate ranks. So, I mean, has there been any coach that stood out to you that you'd say got it right? Or do you think a lot of college coaches are still learning what their players are going through off of the football field when they take that uniform off and just are Black men in America?
I think that some coaches did get it right. I think that if you look at the NBA, it seems like the NBA has always been more aware and more understanding, where I think football in a lot of ways, they're always in a bubble. Mm-hmm. They're in that football bubble. They're in that coaching world. Right. And most of them are they probably couldn't tell you the cost of anything. They probably don't know the cost of anything, or they can't really tell you what's going on in the world. They're not really aware.
Yeah.
They're taking their experiences and and that's what they go with, their experiences. And maybe not all of them are like that, I'm sure, but I think they're kind of in a bubble. They're in their own world. And a lot of times when you're like that, you're thinking that the system is correct. If you just love and Jesus Christ and I'm such a Christian, and they don't realize that for a long time the system has been against most of the players that they go out and recruit.
Right.
And they're thinking in their eyes that, hey, we treat these guys right, blah blah blah, and America is right, and we're the heroes in the story a lot of times, and that's just not simply true. It really isn't. People talk about freedoms, but there's like 27 other countries that are free. We're not the only country that is free, and we tend to think we're the only country that cares about other people, and we're the only country that's free, and that's just really not the case.
Yeah.
And I think that it did open eyes for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It did wake, not only people who didn't know, but secretly folks like us who knew, but we were even like, wow, this is deeper, and it's just not fair, and the system needs to be changed. So I think that a lot of coaches did wake up. I would dare say just Dabo Swinney, he woke up too a little bit.
Yeah.
And you got to credit guys like Trevor Lawrence, who was one of the first guys who really stood up and say, I'm with my guys.
Right.
And we need more of that.
Became an ally, right? Essentially.
Yeah, he became an ally, and he's never probably been through anything like that before. Mm-hmm. He probably doesn't have to go through that. I mean, this guy's probably going to be the number 1 draft pick. And, if you were going to illustrate or build a guy, he's basically the guy. If you're playing PlayStation or something, you would build, 6'6" quarterback, long blonde hair. He would be that guy, that perfect guy for you. But to see him step up to the plate and say, this is how I feel, was really important. And I think it got Clemson moving into a direction that they were reluctantly didn't want to do. They were resisting. And, we still have that. We still have that fight. There's some people that, our guys against Virginia wore different messages on the back of their jersey: service, love, equality. And, we still have people who are just like, oh my God, I wish it wasn't so political. I wish it wasn't this. And it's no call for this, and it's communist, and it's just funny. It really is. It's hilarious.
Sometimes is a laugh. I mean, because it's like you said, it's a message that's trying to be put forward, for the larger good. On this point, Levon, if you don't mind touching on it, I'm just curious if you don't mind sharing this with us. When would you say your first bout with racism was?
Wow, my first bout. I think really, I was always aware of it because of where I come from. Mm-hmm. And, my earlier years in school, it was all Black schools. And our rivals it wasn't an all white school. It was more of a mixture of schools. Yeah. But you kind of looked at my school, Spalding, is the Black school. And on the other side of the tracks is more so the white school. Yeah. I didn't really encounter it really face to face a whole lot, but I just remember, and I thought this was kind of curious, even after I went to Clemson and I was in the NFL for 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. I just remember this guy coming at me that was from my high school, and I knew him, and he basically was like, I just thought you would never make it at Clemson.
Wow.
And I also remember this story when I was in school and I was trying to get to Clemson. And I remember teachers. My father was a custodian at the high school, And I just remember teachers telling my father that, oh my God, he shouldn't go to Clemson. It's too much for him. He would never succeed there. And even though it wasn't blatant, in your face kind of racism, it was underneath, because, they were trying to get their kids into Clemson also.
Yeah.
But the school that's trying to give me a scholarship, they're saying, oh no, he shouldn't go there. And even though it was a little passive aggressive, acting like we're concerned about you, we want the best for you.
Right.
But in other words, they probably thought, this black kid will never make it at Clemson. So even though it wasn't in my face, that was really the first time I really encountered it. And my father basically told me about it. And he told those teachers, like, listen, if Clemson wants him there, then he belongs there.
Right.
Point blank. They thought that he was going to be like, okay, let me go talk to my son and say, don't go there. And I know my father was really concerned about me going,
Right.
Because all my other brothers and sisters went to HBCUs, and shout out to HBCU.
I was going to ask you that next. I was leading towards
that. And I was the first one to go to a PWI.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was concerned. But he was like, I even asked him, like, Dad, what school should I go to? And he was just like, you got to make that decision on your own.
I like that, though, putting the trust in your kid. And you obviously we know what you did at Clemson, so we'd say.
Right. But that was really probably the first time I really saw it happening, when, people that are right in your face and saying hello and great game, every Monday, they were the ones saying, I don't think he can make it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really the first time that I really kind of faced it. And like I said, being an athlete, sometimes you don't blatantly get it, but you do get it. It's kind of under, a little underneath, when they're surprised when you can talk. And sometimes I do mess up my words, but they're surprised when you're articulate. They are. They're like,
I know the feeling.
Really? Yeah. Wow. You speak so well, Things like that. You're like, oh yeah, really? Okay.
Yeah. Like what you expect. It's and you touch.
They don't expect that. That's the issue. That's the problem.
And it's crazy, even now in 2020, this is still happening. And instantly when you're talking, the first line that came to my head was O.J. Simpson, this infamous line, I'm not black, I'm O.J., right? And I think it touches on, sometimes how athletes are treated differently. And some feel like they're, quite frankly, in the box, where they're kind of separated, from the experiences maybe that others face. And so I'm happy that you touched on that. And did you also touch on HBCUs? Why don't we go into that conversation, Levon? Of course, big with football. And you might have heard a guy called Primetime, Deion Sanders, made, of course, big announcement that he would be joining Jackson State University, of course, an HBCU in Jackson, Mississippi. There's a new movement now. I think there's a new push. I think it's always been there, but I think now there's more eyes and more attention. At Howard, we had a 5-star recruit join the basketball team.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's great.
Yeah, we're seeing top recruits consider HBCUs, and we're seeing, I think many are seeing Deion kind of leading this charge of keeping and bringing Black talent to Black schools. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that, and that wave, and if it's something that you're talking with your young athletes about, and if you really see it as a viable source for these young athletes, to continue their college career, hopefully to play. I'm sure they all have dreams of playing in the NFL like you.
Well, I really got my wake-up call when I went to FAMU to coach. One of my dear friends, Earl Holm, gave me the opportunity to be defensive coordinator, linebacker, and defensive line coach there. And I think that I was blinded a little bit too by the PWI experience, and you thinking that you're going down to a lesser level. And what I found out was that these student athletes more so, they were ready for the world because they were more prepared as athletes than maybe what you see at the PWI.
Right.
And I think sometimes the only difference is maybe resources. But I think if you have a great leader,
right,
that it doesn't that you're going to do well.
Right.
You're going to do well. And you see it in Willie Simmons at FAMU, that football team has really turned the corner. It's not really the talent. People will say that, the reason why they don't go is because, they don't have the resources, they don't have this or they don't have that. And maybe you're right, in some ways. But have you ever been to someone's home that's really not rich, but that home is clean and organized?
Right.
And you feel right at home.
You have that feeling, yeah.
Yeah, you have that feeling. And so I always equate it to, if you can be the best hotel you can be,
yeah,
and you can welcome your guests and they feel at home, it's a good place to stay. I feel that way with HBCUs. As long as it's a good place to stay,
right,
and they treat you like family, then why not? Why wouldn't it be a good opportunity? And in the history of football, some of our greats in the NFL have come from HBCUs.
Right.
And, they became so good that at one point in time, some of the PWIs were like, you know what? We got to start recruiting these Black Americans to play football for our teams.
Right.
Yeah. So, yes, I think and I think people are seeing that now. I think athletes are seeing that, They're seeing that, this is an opportunity for me to play. And the one thing I love about the NFL, they really don't care where you're from. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. So I think a lot of people think, and I can see that, yes, if you go to a PWI, that you will get more exposure and you will get more eyes. And a lot of times you may even get drafted because you were from a big school or from a championship school. I've seen it happen before, But if you're a good player and you're outstanding,
right,
they really don't care, especially the good teams. They don't care. You can be from under a rock university, and they can find you. They're going to find you, and they're going to give you opportunities. So, yeah, of course, HBCUs is a place that our athletes can go to and really do well there.
I like that, HBCUs, and of course they're also on the prime front because if people watch the vice presidential election, of course, also an HBCU graduate. So they're getting a lot of love these days. And since you touched on coaching, we might as well transition there. Of course, you've been a coach. You talked about it. You've coached at all three levels. You did a 2-year coaching internship as outside linebackers coach for the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm sure you've heard the chatter and the chit chat, Levon, about we're like some people are looking around like saying, hey, where are the Black head coaches in the National Football League? The creation of the Minority Coaching Fellowship that Mike Loxley at the University of Maryland created, and there's others. We see the Doug Williams, the brand new center he has at Grambling State University and what, of course, he's helping to do with Black coaches. But in your opinion, Levon, how do we get more, I wouldn't even just say Black, how do we get more minority coaches, in the forefront to be considered for head coaching jobs in the NFL at the top levels? Because, there are some teams right now who some are already saying, like, and we've seen a coaching firing, right, already.
You're scratching your head, right? Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this whole topic?
Well, I think a lot of times, unfortunately, in almost every industry, you kind of hire what you're like.
Right.
If they fit your personality and, are they loyal to you? And I mean, I can kind of understand that to a certain degree. But I think that a lot of times is what I found in my experience that sometimes for an NFL player, it's hard because now you got to go backwards a little bit and they want you to start from the front. So if our guys can really get to the point where they're doing it earlier, where they're maybe playing college football and they're thinking about coaching or teaching, that they do it at an earlier age. And also, too, I feel that people are doing that, but I think our owners, our GMs, have to have more of an open mind when it comes to these coaches and understanding the coaches. I'll give you a prime example. Mike Tomlin, if I got the story correctly, probably wasn't the candidate at the time for the Pittsburgh Steelers job. But when he came in there, his knowledge, his mindset, I think it blew the Steelers away.
Yeah.
And they were open to the fact that, you know what? Yes, we had candidates that have been in the NFL for a long time, and they were white candidates and good coaches. But, man, they went for the guy who was, in their minds and their heart, they thought was the most qualified for the job.
Right.
And make no mistake about it, Mike Tomlin is a heck of a coach. And I think Mike Tomlin did it early. And, you know, he grew up and he had a great coaching tree. And you're telling me that other coaches can't do that. I think they can do that. Right. But a lot of times, you know, you want to hire experience. You want to hire guys who've been around. And I understand that process. But I think you just have to be a little bit more open-minded about who can get the job done. And if you can give him the resources that he needs and give him the help that he needs, then that is even better. But I really feel that, you know, I think with coaching, you have to start earlier. Just like with anything, you have to start early. It's hard to be an NFL player and, you know, make that transition. Sometimes we don't get that door open to us a lot of times, but sometimes we do. And, you know, there's a few jobs in the NFL. So, I mean, the numbers thing is really not for you anyway. I just think that, you know, if our guys start thinking about maybe doing it earlier, but I think also too, it's up to the ownership, it's up to the NFL to be open about this. And you know, guys who played in the league that, you know, they got to continue to give those opportunities. You know, I've been told that I didn't have a chance, you know, that I didn't have recruiting experience. And then the next thing you know, I know another guy who got a job and he just got out of football and they just welcome him to the college ranks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. One coach tells me, oh, you just don't have enough recruiting experience. And I'm like, well, I probably can't get that until I start recruiting. And then I see another guy who had no college, he didn't coach at all, get a big time Division I job.
Mm. Yeah. And this is why we're And this is why we're having this conversation, right?
Yeah, this is why we're having a conversation. Yeah. And a lot of times it's basically who you like. You know, you can have a resume that's, you know, filled to the brim, but, you know, you got to hope that coach really likes you and wants you to be a part of it. And that's how you get hired sometimes. It's just, you know, that, hey, we want you. We heard great things about you. We want you. And that's how to get on board. So, you know, I just wanted to get better. Hopefully it gets better. And I know some guys that are coaching now, that's some great guys, African-American coaches. But you know what? Along the line, I met some wonderful white coaches that, you know, that I worked under. You know, I worked under Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is one of the best coaches I ever met, you know. And he believes in giving guys who played in the league, especially, and he told me, especially African-American guys, opportunities. But, you know, you always want the best person for the job. You know, I believe in that. You want the best person for the job. But a lot of times, you know, you got to start at a young level, I think. And you got to do the internships. And you got to do the groundwork. And I understand that. And I hope our guys continue to get opportunities like that.
I like that. I think the future, you know, is bright. You know, we had Dan Rooney on this show. Jim Rooney on this show to talk about, you know, just the progress that we hope to make. And so he's exciting and inspiring, and the Rooney family is committed, of course, to progressing that. And I think, of course, now that more people are, I'll just call them woke. And of course, we hope to see that continue to rise, you know, because there are positions out there that, as you want the best person, but you do want everybody to be considered for these opportunities. I think that's why sometimes you have to break away from the people that are just in your groups, because sometimes we silo ourselves and we all have our own biases, and then that prevents you from seeing, you know, the others that are out there that you could potentially reach out and get. And Levon, while we're talking about Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, I can't have you on the show, Levon, without talking about the Steelers, of course. So we have to talk the Steelers. Of course, you had a great career with them. You know, to 2000, mainly with Pittsburgh Steelers. You were named a member of the NFL 1990s All-Decade Team for your solid play with them. And we're going to talk about the current Steelers team now, but I go back to when you played with them, right? And you all were able to, because you guys just established something powerful, right? Like we all remember that Steelers 90s decade team. So talk about just how special it was for you to be a part of that group. And when you look back now, what still do you hold near and dear to your heart?
I think that everything starts from the top, and we had great ownership, and they've been through, the 80s, which wasn't great for them, and they just retired a legendary coach and Coach Noel, who actually gave a young Tony Dungy an opportunity to be a defensive coordinator when that was really unheard of. So they did their due diligence, and they got a guy named Bill Cowher, who was a young guy, but a very high energy guy. And I just remember visiting the Pittsburgh Steelers during my draft process, and I remember telling myself I wanted to play for this man. And I remember when the draft came up, funny story was, with a 38th pick when it came about, I went into the bathroom and I was like, they're going to pick me. They're going to pick me. They're going to pick me. And it must be something about that affirmation stuff, and it happened for me. But to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, you feel the buy-in. When I went there, Coach Cowher really did a great job of gathering everybody together, and that couldn't be easy for a 34-year-old coach to do that. And you kind of buy into the tradition too. I being a linebacker with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah. Come on, man, you gotta bring it. And I just remember when I was choosing my jersey, and the choices I had was between 58, Jack Lammer's number, 59, Jack Ham's number. It is no way in hell am I going to get those numbers. So it was left up to 56 and 99. And I was just like, you know what? Nobody really rocks 99. And I was number 44 in college. I'm like, the double digit kind of worked for me in that way. And I was like, I'm going to rock 99. And I remember putting that jersey on and people looking at me like, 99, really? And the only thing I could tell them was, it's gonna grow on you. It's gonna grow on you. Yeah. But we had tremendous players like Rod Woodson, Greg Lloyd, and those two guys in particular really set the tone. My second year, Kevin Green came in and Chad Brown came in. And we had a very innovative kind of defense with Dick LeBeau, Dom Capers, Marvin Lewis, John Mitchell. So we had a coaching staff. We did. And they really, I learned so much that 1 year, my rookie year, that I ever learned in college, in the 4 to 5 years I stayed in college. So I just remember how we would do drills that I'm sure they don't even really do now, like perfect plays. And that's basically pursuit to the ball. I remember our defense during training camp, after practice was over with, we would hit the heels and we would run the heels. Yeah. We took ownership of the team because really, coaches have to make sure that players can buy in, but the players have to really buy in and take ownership for themselves. The coaches can't do it. The owner can't do it. Right. The players have to take ownership, and they have to really believe in the system. So our coaching staff did a great job of helping us believe in the system because they understood that the system worked. Right. And what I was really pleasantly surprised was Dom Capers and especially Dick LeBeau, they treated you like men. They wasn't yelling at you. They would in college. You got cursed out all the time. Just really just got cursed out. Yeah. But on that level, we didn't. They didn't. They were really truly honest with us in our play. Yeah. And as a professional, I'm gonna tell you, most guys, these are some of the best people in the world. guys that play sports. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they're really hardworking, they're intelligent, and they want to be coached. Now, if they have the wrong coach, then they're going to be like, no, okay, I don't trust them, so I'm just going to do my thing. And it's so funny because they can smell a fraud a mile away. If a guy's a fraud, we can tell he's a fraud.
No.
You can sniff him out. You can sniff him out. You just know he's full of crap.
Right.
So we were fortunate to have a coaching staff that wasn't like that. And then when I came in, you had guys who would show you how to be professionals.
Yes.
You had that veteran presence there.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times you wasn't like always behind him, but you can just witness and see it yourself. Okay. Right. I used to watch Damani Dawson and how he practiced. Greg Lloyd, Ryan Woodson, Kevin Green was the one guy he came up to me and just like, dude, you got everything there. You got it all. You got it all. He said, but come watch some film with me. You know, I want you to understand the game a little better. Jerry Oslowski was one of those guys.
Yeah.
Greg Lloyd just had the attitude that we all just followed.
Right.
And so it was a great time to be in the NFL because you had some veteran presence. You had some real grown men that really showed you how to play the game. And it was your responsibility to give that back to the guys that came after you. Now, we love defense with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think that people love it. And it's one of the more unique places where, to the fan base,
right,
it's all about the defense.
Of course, yeah,
and it's about the linebackers too.
Yeah.
So being in a city that really loves defense and really love the linebackers was great. Yeah. And I just remember me and Tad Brown was trying to live up to what the standards that Greg Lloyd put out there and Kevin Green. And we were the two young guys in there just trying to get it done. And, you know, eventually we kind of grew up.
Yeah.
And it was a great process. It was a winning team. We all brought something great to the table. And we really, we took pride in it. And especially running the ball. I mean, if somebody ran the ball for more than 100 yards, we were upset. We were just pissed. But yeah, it was a great atmosphere to be. It was a blue collar town, and we played in a blue collar way. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun playing there. I really enjoyed my time in Pittsburgh.
I just love hearing those stories, and again, just memories. And like you said, we think about Pittsburgh, you know, you think of that defense, and I look at the larger AFC North today. You know, I would say the same thing, except I guess Lamar Jackson kind of has more people. Of course, I think thinking about some more offense now, right?
But I tell you what, the thing about that division, man, it was a tough division. It was a fight, you know, and you had playing the Cleveland Browns and even the Cincinnati Bengals, man. We had some tough battles with those guys. And, you know, being in the division, you know each other a lot better than maybe another team would know you outside of your division. And there were some battles, man. It really was. And I'm not the guy to say, well, football was better back then, but I like our brand of football because it was more in the box. Mm-hmm. It was more tough guy football. It was more so like, I see you, you see me. What time is it?
I like
you really had, you know, those guys were after you. So you really had to like buckle up your chin strap and you had to take it to them or they're going to take it to you.
Yeah.
So it was a tough man's game, and it's always been a tough man's game, and it's still a tough man game. I just like our version of the 90s because, you know, defense, you could rule a little bit. You know, the rules weren't so slanted to the offense where you can give a quarterback a little bit of a message, you know. You may hit them a little late and just be like, and they weren't going to throw the flag.
Right.
You know, a running back comes running across the middle, you can give them a little something and give him second thoughts. So I think now what's happening to the NFL is you take away the intimidating factor of a defense. I call it the art of defense. Mm-hmm. You take it away a little bit because defense is so much energy. It's so much reaction. It's so much proactive.
Yeah.
that they kind of take it away from me a little bit. And back in those days, you can hit that quarterback like a second late, or you can hit that guy coming across the middle, and let them know that they're going to get hit. And I'm going to tell you, there's no quarterback in the league, even now, that likes to get hit under the chin a couple of times. They're going to be like, yeah, coach, we don't need to run that play. Or, you get a wide receiver or somebody be like, yeah, let's not, I'm not that enthusiastic about that play, or, or an isolation play, especially going against a guy who, like myself, who's like 270, that, I'm going to go after you. And guys are like, hey, coach, could we not run that play? So, that's why I enjoyed about the game back in the 90s. Like I said before, it was a lot of fun.
I like that. I think everything was better in the 90s. Like, we had good football, good music.
And the music.
90s, thank you. 90s music, yes. Undefeated.
Rap, our music, yes. No question about it. Our music is it. And, I have a daughter, and she goes back to the 90s.
Yeah.
So she likes all that. So it was quality music. It really was. It was a good time. It really was.
So 90s, look, one of the favorite decades. Good people were born in the 90s. I mean, all around. It was good.
Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. It really was.
I love it.
Yes.
Before I let you go, because I appreciate you letting me take up so much time, but we know you're a busy man. I love to ask you this question. In today's game, if you had to pick a linebacker that best emulates your game back who would you pick and why?
Well, I'm sure nobody weighs. Nobody is my size, to be honest with you. Yep. So, but the one thing that probably surprised a lot of people, that I was a very versatile linebacker.
Yeah.
And that I was I can really cover well. I can stop the run. I can even rush the passer or blitz. Gosh, the only guy that I really like that's kind of like me, and he's a young guy.
Yeah.
But his father played around the same time, I like the kid from Buffalo.
Yeah.
His name Tremaine Edmonds.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, I like that kid.
I
like him. He
endorsement.
Yes, he and I always like I can never remember his name. Is it Bobby Wagner from for the Seattle Seahawks?
I like these names you're throwing out.
Yeah, Bobby is really good. I mean, Bobby's kind of old school. He can do it all. I'm gonna tell you a guy I like that nobody is probably thinking about, but I'm only saying this because he's from my hometown. But B.J. Goodson, the linebacker from the Cleveland Browns, is a really good player.
Yeah,
and he's a thumper, but he's really good in coverage also. So I think he found a home in Cleveland. So yeah, there's a lot of linebackers I like, but I really like that guy who's versatile, who can do it all. And I think in this game you have to be able to, at linebacker, you got to be able to do it all. And if you can't do it all, then it's hard. It really is. And there's some other linebackers that are real good. I can't call all of them by name, but if I see them, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy. So yeah, there's a lot of good linebackers out there. There really is. But I like that. I like the Edmonds kid, man. His dad was a pretty good player too. Yeah, I like him. Yes. Oh yeah, I'm forgetting. The kid that went to South Carolina State. I think his name is Leonard. What is Leonard's last name? But he went to South Carolina State, and he was an absolute steal because I remember watching him with the Bulldogs. And I'm like, this guy was making 20 tackles a game. Yeah. And he just kind of popped off this. He just popped on film. And I really liked it. I'm like, man, this guy can really play. So I can't forget about Leonard. Leonard is a really good player.
I love it. I appreciate you touching on that. Before I let you go, when are we going to see the Steelers hoist that championship trophy again? How long?
It could be this year. It could be this year. I don't know if they have the running game, though. I think Ben is playing well. I like his receivers. They don't have that dynamic runner, but they do got a 1-2 punch.
Okay.
That are hard workers. They're just not like game breakers.
Yeah.
And the defense is really flying around. They got some guys on defense that are just really playing with a lot of energy at this point in time, and they're still pretty young.
Yeah.
So I like them, but boy, that Kansas City monster, that Kansas City machine.
Hard to see anyone past them, I know.
It's tough. It's tough, but you never know. You get in the playoffs, you never know.
That's true. Playoffs change, right? Because look at last year. You look at the playoffs, some were thinking that Baltimore might be the team to come out. And we saw Derrick Henry in the Tennessee Titans.
Can I say this about Lamar Jackson?
Yes.
And this is what a lot of people got wrong about him, is that when you have a quarterback, and I know the saying is, oh, you can't use his legs forever, blah, blah, blah. I played on defense, and I hated playing against guys like him. Yeah. Because he can make a 3rd and 15 until a first down with himself. A quarterback that has to rely on his arm, you know what? You can really debate with him. You can get after him a little bit, and he has to throw off his time. As long as he don't have time, you can really, 3rd and 15 is not a big deal. But with a guy like Lamar Jackson, 3rd and 15 can be a problem.
Yeah.
And when he runs for that first down, you're blown because you're using so much energy on defense that you're just like, man. So I hated playing against guys like him. So I think anytime you have Lamar Jackson, you have an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. So that division is going to be good. And I like how what Cleveland is doing so far.
They're grown up.
They're growing up a little bit. They're taking a little bit out of Baker's hand, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah,
I think they're taking it out of Baker's hands. I think that although Baker was first round, he's number 1 pick. Baker is not that big arm, big athletic guy. He's not. And I think this coaching staff really understands that. And so now they're saying, hey, let's use our other weapons. Let's play action pass. Let's get our other guys working instead of depending on the passing game. So yeah, that division looks good. So, but I'm a Steeler guy.
You have to be. It's going to be a race for that number 1 spot. Currently, the Steelers are technically in first place. And now that since we talked about quarterbacks, I might as well get your thoughts. You might have heard we had some things going on here in DC. Quarterback Dwayne Haskins is no longer the starter, right? He was moved down to the 3rd string. Your thoughts on that when you heard the news?
Man, that's tough. That really is. I mean, especially when you demote them all the way to 3rd string, because a lot of times this is what happens in the quarterback room. It's never really a quarterback competition.
Right.
Every other position is competing, always. But normally you cater to your quarterback. You do, unless you just don't have a quarterback. So if you have a real good quarterback, you don't want that guy to worry that he's competing with another guy. So a lot of times, an NFL quarterback, that backup guy and that 3rd string guy is basically his entourage. They really are. They're his buddies to say, hey, you're the greatest. You're the man. But, it's tough for a young quarterback to just get demoted that way. And I love Ron Rivera. He was my coach when I was at Philly. So I really like Ron. But, man, that's got to be tough to be the 1st string guy. It's only been a couple of games. You had no preseason. Yeah. And now you're the 3rd string quarterback. That's tough. That's real tough. That's real tough. And you wonder sometimes, can a guy bounce back from that?
I think that's the big question that we're all asking. It's going to be a telling time for him. But, I think adversity, how you come out of adversity makes anyone stronger. So I think we're all just curious, Levon, to see what happens next.
That's why therapy is such a good thing. I'm telling you. And that's why, guys may need guys like myself that could pour into their lives. So, yeah, I feel bad for that kid because I can't imagine being demoted like that. It would have really tore me up. It really would have. So I can imagine for him in a big market team where the media is like, here, they're in his face. That's tough. It really is. Yeah.
And on that point, have you gotten used to calling them the Washington football team yet, Levon? Because I know obviously when you played them, they were that other word that I can no longer say. Have you gotten used to it?
I haven't. Okay. But I think they did the right thing.
Yeah.
I really believe they did the right thing. I do wish they would come up with a name, but it's what, the owner, Dan Snyder, it is what it is right now. But I'm really happy that they got rid of the name. If we're going to talk about Black America, we cannot forget what our brothers have gone through also. And I think to remove that name was a step in the right direction.
Well said. Levon Kirkland, thank you for joining me. I know I told you an hour. I went over about 6 minutes. I hope charge it to my heart, not my head.
I'm such a good conversationalist. That's what happens.
I love, right? You get caught up. I tell people that's why I love doing this.
You get caught up in my passion and my energy. That's what happens.
And see, two people like that too. It's bad. That's why we do.
We can just go on and on. We have to stop ourselves. So
this could have been a documentary, no joke. Like we could have done a 10-hour documentary show. Levon, thank you so much for joining me. Please don't be a stranger. Keep up the great work in South Carolina. Really appreciate it. I'll tell you this: had the best fried pickles I've ever had in South Carolina.
Of course you did. Yeah, it's great food there. Yeah, it's great food here.
Great food, and great people. Thank you so much for joining. Please don't be a stranger.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a great one. Bye.
Bye.
All right, you guys just heard from Levon Kirkland. Special thanks to him for joining me on the show. Such a great conversation, such a great person, and I appreciate his time. And of course, best wishes to his Pittsburgh Steelers this football season. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, guys, that we don't get too many more COVID cases because I know we want football to continue, of course, if it's safe. All right, join me back this Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. I'm bringing two guys from the London Lions on the show, former NBA players, Byron Mullins and DeAndre Liggins. We're going to talk a lot of the latest and greatest in basketball and all of the great things that they're doing with the British Basketball League over in the UK. So it's going to be a great show. We talk football today, taking you guys to basketball. You never just know who might pop up on this show. And again, I have a great lineup planned for you all for October. Also for this week, please check out The Life and The Fit, my Washington football shows. And of course, at 9:30 a.m. every Saturday on NBC Sports Washington, check out Washington Unfiltered that I'll be hosting for the Washington football team. So lots of great things coming up. And also we'll be dropping podcast versions of the show soon. Ariel Chambers is my next guest on the podcast version of the show. So super excited to have her on. We'll be talking the latest and greatest with the WNBA. Congratulations to the Seattle Storm for what they did to win the WNBA championships and so much more. And hopefully, of course, you guys all enjoy tomorrow night's game. I think LA might later on too. They're going to close it out, the Los Angeles Lakers and of course the Miami Heat. But of course, as always, thanks so much for doing the show. Special thanks to my team as always for just doing the amazing and incredible work and making my job easy. And of course, if you like something on the show, please hashtag it. Hashtag Listen In With KNN or hashtag LIWKNN. And of course, give your comments on the show. This show is not just for me, it's for you all to interact with these amazing guests that we try to bring on each and every week. And of course, as always, thanks so much for riding with me. And I'll see you guys on Saturday, 2 p.m. Bye, guys.
Follow Kelsey on social media at The Real K Nelson. Catch episodes of Listen In with KNN on YouTube, on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM Fox Sports Radio, on Facebook and Twitter, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN.
You used to hear me on your airwaves or hear me on my hit podcast, but now I'm taking you to the screen. You'll love Elevator Thoughts. We will talk the latest trending in sports. It's game time. What better way to get to know those that visit the show than over some good food and drink? It's time for confessions.